So this is also why I'm looking into AI, artificial intelligence. Is it possible? We do have photorealistic environments like Age. Can I have an avatar that has my knowledge that can converse with somebody? So while I'm on vacation, like Rick's going to be pretty soon, I can still be in my virtual store talking to prospective customers, talking to people that want to learn about my past, mentor, whatever. That's exciting.
Well, we are joined in our studio by our guest, Jim Intriglia. Jim, how are you today?
I am doing great, Rick and Hazel, and thanks for having me on your show. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you. I mean, you're going to be talking today about Web 3.0, VR, all this cool stuff that's I think we're on the fringe of, we're getting a little bit in the water about. So you'll be able to give us some insight about that. So we can't wait to hear about that. But it's this show is really about the journey as well. Where we've come from, where we're going, et cetera, et cetera. So why don't you kick us off? Give us a little bit of your background and a little bit of your journey. It's been wide and great, and I'm looking forward to hearing it again. Real quick though, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell. Make sure you get notified next time our episode drops. So, Jim, back to you.
Yes, thanks. So my background, basically, I started in technology well over 30 years ago as a engineering tech graduate, first go around in university. And over time, I guess the entrepreneurial bug bit me about 5 years into business when I started to look around and realized it's kind of neat. I can do this. I can do that, not really realizing what it took to do that, of course.
That never happens.
Being the explorer, and I had already, in maybe a span of 2 or 3 years, I had already worn several hats in one commercial enterprise I was working, which is why I have no hair. I'm wearing all the hats over the years. But I basically launched my first business, which I believe was a consulting business. And that started the journey. And today, I am basically my profession is a business systems consultant. Mm-hmm. I work on large, complex systems, primarily in healthcare. And then virtual reality. I got aboard that about 3 years ago. When I felt it reached a tipping point from the standpoint of business and professional with the Quest 2 introduction. Mm-hmm. And then I'm an educator. I've been a lifelong educator and student my whole life. So I teach professionals and other entrepreneurs, basically share my journey and advise them.
That's awesome. You said you started out as a consultant. What kind of consultancy was that? Do you remember?
So I started out basically, computers, I remember before the personal computer, and I was fortunate to actually work in a company that not only had a personal computer before Microsoft, mm-hmm. but actually had a powerful mini computer.
Oh, wow.
And didn't really know it, I don't think. They didn't really care. They used it for their business. Uh-huh. And I started to see the capability of something more than a computer terminal. This is back in 1980.
Okay.
I started a consulting business when the IBM PC first came out, the televideos, the first personal computers, to help home-based businesses leverage and apply this new tool.
Give us a little bit. For those of our listeners that haven't really had an opportunity to get involved in VR, give us a little bit of context with that. What is the Quest 2?
Sure. So starting with virtual reality is really a new medium, much like the web was a new medium, much like video, motion pictures were a new medium. I don't consider virtual reality just a 3D version of either 2D personal computing or real life. It's actually a brand new medium that you can do things that you cannot do in real life or on a 2D headset, a 2D personal computer. The Quest 2 was the first, or one of the first. I know they had a previous model out of Facebook Meta, which is now Meta, which was the Quest 1 4 Degrees of Freedom headset that basically immersed you into a virtual world. Prior to that, back in 2016, We had Google Cardboard, which basically took a person's cell phone, you slipped it in, and that gave people a taste, but it's not anywhere near like, in my opinion, virtual reality as we have it today.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about virtual reality is it's not really new. And we can trace it back to the U.S. Department of Defense in 1960, training our pilots to fly.
Wow.
That's basically its birthplace.
Flight simulator.
So it's been around a long time.
Okay.
That's actually the best use case, Rick, is the Microsoft Flight Simulator. Graduated from being a game. We're seeing this happen with games to being an educational tool where you could learn how to fly, literally. So metaverse right now is an interesting topic in that people are still trying to define it.
Uh-huh.
And the interesting thing about being in a new technology is nobody's really sure. So a lot of the people that have been around VR for a long time and new people as well are kind of putting forth their version of what they believe the metaverse is
Mm-hmm.
and isn't. So the metaverse could be, in the case of Meta Facebook, their community that is evolved around the Quest their platform, which is the Quest 2.
Yeah.
If you're looking at something like HP Reverb headset, well, that's the Windows mixed reality. That's Microsoft. So you have two corporations here, Meta, and you have Microsoft and then you have the Steam community. That's a third-party application or a third-party portal. So, and then you have private metaverses like Engage Link, which I'm very excited about, and Neos is another one. So, one view of the metaverse is it's much like the web. We'd like it to be where it's a visual, immersive space that's interconnected, much like we can go to any website around the world, pretty much, rather than having separate worlds. I think in the end run, it's going to be both.
Yeah.
There'll be private worlds and then there'll be interconnected worlds. I think it's going to mimic real life and the web to a large extent to that degree.
Yeah.
So essentially, VR is going to be like this medium where you can connect to the metaverse.
Right. So when I put my headset on, I have a couple of options. I can play a game if I want. I don't play games. I don't have the time to play games. So when I put a headset on, I'm either learning about something, and that could be through an immersive 360 video. That could be interacting with somebody, which is what I do most. It could be me teaching up on a virtual stage.
Oh, wow.
Like one of the environments that I subscribe to has a TEDx stage. So if I want to do a talk, I can do a talk in a TEDx environment to see what it's really like. Or I can actually go boot an application and hold a virtual meeting like we're having now, where with my headset on, I can actually work with my computer, which can be in another building or another state or another place.
Wow.
As all the other people in the virtual room can see their machines, and we can have a virtual working session. We do that as well.
Wow. That is amazing. I mean, like from your example earlier, at this point, everyone can practically study to become a pilot in their home.
Yeah. and I love flying. I learned to fly. I'm a student pilot in 2015, and I remember when I was having trouble. I was learning to fly fixed wing gliders, which is what our Air Force learns to fly our cadets.
Mm-hmm.
They're towed up by a plane and then they're cut loose and you glide. They fly very well. When I was having trouble with that exercise, I went home and I booted up a 2D version and I practiced. And when I came back the next weekend, I had it.
Nice.
And I try as I might, I couldn't get it in the plane, but when I got it on 2D, so now I have that same simulation with a headset, but it's so much more real because you're there.
Wow.
You feel you're there.
That's cool. Yeah, I've seen the I guess the headsets, and I'm starting to hear a lot about the application as you were saying about meetings and just getting together with your teams and that sort of thing. What are business applications beyond just like for I guess a group, if you will? What are business applications for the metaverse, or what do you see as coming down the pipe?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is networking. And the way I define networking is how may I help you?
Mm-hmm.
So if you get this is one of the things I love doing in the metaverse as well as real life is organizing teams of creative people, very broadly very broadly distributed as far as their talents, their locations. I find that gets the best results when we collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can do that in the real world. You can certainly do that like we're doing now. But in VR, it seems that in a very short time, there's an intimacy to it, and the bonds form very quickly, much like they would in real life. Like if you meet over the phone versus how we're meeting now. If you meet face to face, that as humans, the bonds tend to form better. Yeah. And in VR, it happens amazingly fast.
Wow. Wow.
Which is, so there's this element of trust, that comes out of it. And then some of the business applications, for example, if you look at data modeling, we can do data modeling in 2D. Well, in virtual reality, you can do it in 3D, right? You can be as tall as you want. You can be, there's an infinite amount of space. So you now have the same. So for example, I was looking at the Mona Lisa. Mm-hmm. There's an application where you can tour the world. So anybody can go and see the Mona Lisa, not the Mona Lisa, the Sistine Chapel, okay. In real life. Mm-hmm. But could you actually see the Sistine Chapel from the standpoint of painting on the roof, on the ceilings, from the standpoint of Michelangelo when he painted it? You can do that in VR.
Wow.
Right? Float on your back to that level.
Amazing.
So that's an example of yeah. Or, Rick was asking about business apps. So one example is there's a package called Noda. So as a business analyst, I do a lot of diagramming, flowcharts, cross-functional diagrams, you name it. There's hundreds of diagrams that we use as analysts. Noda is a VR application where you can do mind mapping.
Oh, cool.
But in VR. So it puts you in this big room and you literally can draw 3-dimensional mind maps, but you can also go up. So I can go 20 feet off the ground. We can float around it. It can be as big. And in medicine, we can have a virtual beating heart, model of the heart, and you can go inside the heart to look at the chambers to watch the blood flow. There's just, so many different types of applications. Engine repair, where you can, take a complex industrial engine and explode it. Technicians, mechanics can learn how to service it. They do that with jet aircraft as well.
Wow.
Firefighting, you name it. Hospital care, surgeries, practice. Yeah. When we talk about it being a new medium of that, so when the idea to put movie watching in virtual reality came about, much like with the World Wide Web, the first e-commerce site, they took a sales brochure, they scanned it, they put it on a web page. We had e-commerce, right? Mm-hmm. No. We look at Amazon.com, we know what, e-commerce is about and other sites. So it was a far cry from just scanning a brochure and putting it on a web page. So one of the things I watched is when movies came to virtual reality and, these theaters were created and the screen was put up and a movie was played and invite your friends. And I went, there's something wrong with that. It's a good first effort, but no, it's just mimicking something in real life. And then I came across a gentleman called Jason Bohr, who's a movie maker. And he, in my estimation, in my judgment, did the transformation to benefit, to leverage VR. And what he did with his meta movies is he wrote a general script. All right. The first one is, I think, a bank robbery. Mm-hmm. So it's about a bank robbery. Not only did he build the set in virtual reality for this movie where it takes place, he also built the the backstage, the back office, where they build the sets for the production crews, so the people that would actually build the set. And then he hired impromptu actors who were familiar with the set. This is all in VR. And then he went a step further and he said, you're in the movie. This isn't passive. This isn't you watching a movie. This is you being in the movie. So for the fee that you pay, you get to be the leading character. You get to be co-character, a alternate character, a fly on the wall. Mm-hmm. But when the movie starts, they wait for you to do something, the impromptu actors, the other people. Hmm. And you may do nothing, and then they may act. So every movie's unique. It has different outcomes. It's all about a bank robbery,
Mhm.
but it has all different outcomes. At the end of the movie, you get a copy. That's how you do a movie in VR, my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's
Crazy.
gonna be like my favorite use case of VR for
No, right?
entertainment.
So one of the tenets of virtual reality is free agency, and that's something I learned very early when I was being mentored on it. Is that when somebody enters a space, you don't lead them. Even a discussion, you may
Yeah.
start provide, and we did that. We did that one thing right. The one first presentation I did with my partner who was mentoring me,
Mhm.
we just had a couple of PowerPoint slides. Not the way to do it in VR, but we just had two to set the stage.
Mhm.
We did a 5-minute intro and then we opened it up for everybody to participate. That's the way to
Mhm.
do it. And if people want to go off to the side and talk, let them. Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
This would definitely help out a lot with like brand awareness as well. I can imagine like showrooms, for instance, for furniture companies, car dealerships, that kind of thing. It's gonna be groundbreaking.
Yes. And
Okay,
there are architects and they're showing homes that you can walk
yeah,
through and scale and say, I'd like it a little bigger, a little smaller, because you are immersed in the home. And if it's done to scale, it's much better than seeing a 2D model or a rendering.
yeah. So this all sounds, futuristic.
Mhm.
Uh, it's very new, very trendy. So there could be like listeners, listening to this episode, and some people who would go, "Oh, this must be expensive to implement." So, what are your thoughts on that? What are some like practical applications, practical ways that businesses can start integrating this into their strategies for brand awareness?
Right, and great question. And I smiled and I shook my head saying, no, it's not expensive. Then I thought about from an analyst point of view. I said, depends what you want to do, right?
Mhm.
uh,
So,
totally, yeah.
right. So to participate, if you just wanted to experience it and really, let's say you're a speaker, you can speak, you have something to share and teach. You can get a Quest 2 headset, and there's others. There's a Pico headset, and literally market yourself um, and get invited to speak in the metaverse
Mm.
at an educational event, trade association. They're all starting to emerge. They're all out there globally. That's the other thing. It's a global market. So when you enter the metaverse, you're entering a global space. Um, so you could start easily that way, and then if you wanted to build like the project I'm working on, I have a team that develops my website. That's all theirs. I just tell them what I need as a requirements analyst. Here's what I need. Even writing, I have writers to write. Right. I am developing requirements for the metaverse because I want the equivalent of a website, my Patreon, in the metaverse. So I want an experience where people can enter a space and learn about me if they want, professionally as personally. You can make friends. I have more friends, and I lost count of how many friends I have in the metaverse as compared to real life. It far outweighs real life. Um, and from a business perspective, they can experience your business. They can experience what you offer. They can experience testimonials. So it's that same translation when we talked about, going from a real world movie to a metaverse movie. That's the challenge.
Mm.
And when I say requirements, I'm not even sure that, what requirements are in the metaverse. It's something I'm investigating.
Mm.
I've given experienced world builders an 8 or 9 sentence description of a concept I had, and they've built uh, spaces that have knocked my socks off with just 9 sentence descriptions. So, um, as I said, it's a truly a new world. So we have to keep in mind our best practices, but at the same time realize that some of them may not apply at all.
What would it take to do like a show like this in the metaverse? Like to I guess get it set up, get your guest in, and I guess create a space, as you said. I mean, what does that take? Is it how long does it take?
Yeah, and that was something I was watching intently because one of the benefits of the metaverse is there aren't many people doing just what you said. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking at establishing a YouTube channel versus establishing uh, a VR cast, let's call it, in the metaspace, you go
Mhm.
with the VR cast from the standpoint of marketing. There's less noise.
Mm,
There's too much. There's too much good content on YouTube. The content is you be there's not much content out there that's quality, but it's changing rapidly.
mhm.
So to answer your question, Rick, there are a couple of podcasters that now have VR casts, and it's everything from customized studios and equipment that do uh, very very good hand and gesture tracking, even eye tracking,
Oh wow.
to just turning on the recording capabilities of the headset and recording yourself in the space talking. And in my opinion, both are effective. If you have something useful to share
Hmm.
of value from the standpoint of the audience, that's what it takes. You could do it
Hmm.
with a simple Quest headset. The cost is really the content. You know, uh, developing the message and value communicate.
Does it require a lot more planning to do that, or do you feel like it's kind of relative?
I would say, from what I've seen, there is planning. There is thought. A lot of the podcast, the VR casts that I follow,
Hmm.
um, and I think at times, like one of the things I realized, especially when I started organizing, I just organized a second team that works on a marketing team on edutainment.
Hmm.
Is that the easiest things, in my opinion, to do in virtual reality are discussions, open discussions. If you get subject matter experts in on a topic of
Hmm.
interest, so the work is what's the topic of interest? What are people interested in?
Yeah.
Get a bunch of subject matter experts together and hold an open discussion, and please include the audience. You know, um, this is not a talk show.
Yeah.
So the way I like to do it is you get it going, and then you invite people on the stage. Even have an open discussion, give them free agency. Those can be done rapidly, very very quickly, as compared to um, the other kind of thing I develop, which are planned, um, educational presentations.
Mhm. Do they all have to be done live, or is it recorded and archived, and you just play it whenever you want to?
So some are done live. Most that I see are recorded, and they have pre-production. So that's where you get into the cost and time. The other thing that I've seen too is that it is a global audience. So when you're out there, you have to have a way to manage the people that want to ask you questions
Uh,
and everything that spawns from that. And that takes time. That's a business. That's a scaling business thing, whether you're doing it professionally or as a business. I had a networking event earlier in the week, and it took me 3 days just to get back to everybody. My longtime virtual assistant retired, so I'm in the process of training another one.
oh no.
So it was all me. It took 3 days to get through everybody. And so that's something to think about when you're doing a global presentation. You have to think about, well, people are going to come back and they're going to get frustrated if you can't get back to them in time. You need to have a team to handle that plan.
That does that sounds significantly more planning.
Yeah. Yes. So the
Yeah.
easy
Hearing
answer is now you can wing it, get into it. And I've seen that. But if you want to have a long-term success, there is planning. Absolutely. You need to think things through and have a strategy and
Got it. Got it.
infrastructure
yeah,
in place.
for sure. Hearing all this, I can totally imagine that this must be how conversations were framed during the early days of the
Yeah.
internet. You know, companies who were able to like um, get behind that quickly were able to rise, more immediately than the other businesses. That's a very interesting.
Oh yeah. I was like
Yeah, I'd have
spinning
to
the
dig up my old
website up.
newsletters and read about that. yeah, I went through that period, and I guess I came on the internet about 1987. It took, again, I knew it was out there, but I was like, let it cook a little longer. It's
You
not
were
of
early.
benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, like in the olden times, who would have thought that business would actually pay for a non-tangible product, non-tangible properties like ads and so on and so forth. And I can totally see that, happening in Metaverse.
Well, even as an educator, the first company that hired me, so this is 1980 around, I was teaching. So I had graduated off the engineering bench, and I was, in the customer service department, and I was developing professional courses to teach technicians how to repair computer terminals, smart computers, or smart terminals as they call them. And I remembering as the courses got more popular, there's only me and my partner. I'm saying, it's taken us forever to grade papers, right? We gave quizzes. We had to prove to the companies that paid for these courses that their technicians learned. So I wrote a program, and this is a PDP-A computer, a mini computer. That was the high tech at the time, to automatically issue tests in front of the terminals on these technicians that they knew how to repair. So they're actually working on the equipment, getting to use what they were going to repair. And then that saved us hours, tens of hours of having to look through and manually grade papers. And I remember the response was, "That's a lot. Why are you doing that?" It's like, well, it's pretty clear to me. We're doing, we're not getting paid to do this. This is after hour work. So we're resolving that problem. But even downloading software. I mean, another company I worked for was, it was a titling company for broadcast. They would send out, order the new font for, your news program. You wanted to have a different style font. They would send out an 8-inch floppy disk. And I said, well, why don't you just put it on the server? It was dial-up at the time. It just have people download it or send it to them by email. Oh, that we won't do that. Why? That's nobody will like that. It's we're seeing the same thing kind of with VR. It's only for gaming. It's just a fad. No, it's not a fad. It's the next generation of the internet and the web.
Yeah, we've seen quite change. I mean, it was, like you said, it was the dial-up, the World Wide Web, and then cloud computing, and then here we are. Speaking of which, we had one of the topics that we talked about. I guess brushed over briefly, just like Web 3.0. I know it's kind of what how would you define that, or how should we look for that?
But it's also probably a debate as how to define Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. But my definition of what I use when I call Web 3.0 is the emergence of mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, and everything in between. So the goggles that we wear in VR are basically going away, and probably very shortly. They have contact lenses that they're working on, one of the companies that I'm tracking.
Wow.
I think their next step is FDA approval, where basically you can put your contact in, and it'll overlay data in the real world. So when you're getting driving directions, you're seeing an arrow, right?
Oh.
Or maybe when you go into VR, they go completely opaque, and you have an experience glasses too. So this is going to be integrated, of course, into the World Wide Web. So it's going to be really a visual interface and an overlay. That's Web 3.0. 2.0, I think, I would say would be the web. And then 1.0 is the internet, basically text for decades. Email was the big innovation back in the 70s, 80s. So that's kind of how I frame that.
Makes sense. And so what happened with Google's glasses, by the way? They had that product that came out, I guess, about 5 years ago now.
Yeah, Google Cardboard. I actually have a couple of articles on the website in the blogs that I wrote when I was studying cardboard. And I don't want to misstate the facts. That's why I write everything. That's why I write. So I get it right, and I have it documented, and I can refer people to it. But they learned a lot of good things in that project, and it was disbanded at some point. I don't recall the reasons why, but one of the key things I recall is that what they were doing in the project was creating virtual reality assets, objects in 2D, and then bringing it into VR. And what they learned is it's not working. They have to actually create the assets in VR. Right? And that's the best practice today. So if you go into Engage Link, if you've seen Ready Player One, the movie, talk about sci-fi, right? Ready Player One, Engage Link, Engage the company is rolling out later this year a metaverse called Engage Link for business and professionals. So they have my full attention. I've been around Engage for about 2 years now, whereby when you enter that metaverse, you see a bunch of people walking around like a modern day city. And there are portals to different rooms and environments. You can have your personal apartment in the luxury skyscraper. You can have your business. And so imagine that you're in your business and people from all over the world can walk in the virtual front door. The salesman in me gets very excited about that. The marketing potential is amazing, right? Because this is a 24/7 persistent world. And again, very easy to get started, but the question is, you have to know how to handle that kind of demand. So you give customer service. So this is also why I'm looking into AI, artificial intelligence. Is it possible? We do have photorealistic environments like Engage. Can I have an avatar that looks like me, that has my knowledge, that can converse with somebody? So while I'm on vacation, like Rick's going to be pretty soon, I can still be in my virtual store talking to prospective customers, talking to people that want to learn about my past, mentor, or whatever. That's exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. So when do you think like the average person would be able to experience this very immersive world at some level? Or like at a similar level that we were just talking about.
So say your question again, Hazel. I want to make sure I understand it.
So this all sounds, as I mentioned earlier, very futuristic. So I'm just curious to know if you have any thoughts, like when do you think the average person would be able to get the chance to experience this immersive world? Is it like too far along in the future, next couple of years?
Well, it's actually been here for a couple of years. I mentioned when Facebook came out with the Quest and the Quest 2. These are $399 headsets. Now that may sound a lot, but prior to that announcement, you needed a virtual reality based machine PC that could run $3,500 and up. Right now, go out on Amazon, right to Facebook. In order to even use, you can probably get it for $100, $150 in a great headset, Quest 2. And start your journey, whether you want to game, whether you want to make friends in VR, whether you want to learn how to fly, regardless of whether you want to network. There's more than any person could possibly do if they wore the headset 24 hours a day. That's how much there is to learn out there and experience. So it's right now. The thing is, why do you want to do it? And so, when people ask me this, I said, well, what are your goals? As a mentor, as an advisor, what are you looking to achieve professionally, personally? If I was a coach, which I'm not, or business, and then I see if the use case is a good fit. Not everything should be in virtual reality. There's a lot of things, like I say, do it in the real world, but do it in 2D. So it really depends on the person.
Wow. It sounds like...
I can totally see like a future where this becomes standardized,
exactly.
Especially with like Facebook renaming their company to Meta. So that's like basically announcing to everyone that, hey, we're in Metaverse. This is the future.
Yeah, and they had, there was a 2D space Second Life, which is well known. I think that's 1994, 2004. I'm trying to remember when that came out, maybe 2004. And that was amazing. I watched it very closely. This was a quote unquote game that came alive, had its own economy at some point. Real world things jumped into Second Life, this 2D realistic world. Things from Second Life jumped into the real world. People got married in Second Life that met in Second Life. It was really fascinating. Universities built teaching spaces in Second Life. This is all happening in VR now. So when the people's, and I think one of the problems, it was Linden Labs at the time, is it was just a monster. It just grew and grew and grew. So in virtual reality, this is a worldwide thing. And that's why the growth is being managed, is because everybody has some kind of stake in it and is developing something. So at some point, there'll be something for just about anybody that wants to gain some benefit in VR. So one thing, too, that'll come to mind is the gaming esports was something that, went from, it's just a bunch of people playing games, to now it's an industry where people that are professional esport players become millionaires. This is also happening in VR. Not the millionaire part is not what I'm focused on, but these people I mentioned, the meta movie, there's potential for somebody to be in a meta movie and somebody else saying, you were a really good character in that movie. Would you like to act in another one? This time, rather than a customer, we want you to act. There was a story I read of a software developer who was working on a game, 2D game, and the talent, the character that was going to play this role in 2D, got sick. And she said, they asked her. She said, "Well, I know the role. I'm programming the character," and she now has a career as a character actor. She did so well that, and she knew the role because she was programming it. She was programming the character. So the same thing. There was another story of two brothers. One was learning how to be a professional race car driver in the real world. One was doing it in VR. Guess who made it first?
Wow.
Oh, the 2D world. The 2D world, right?
Wow.
The gamer. So that's the other. We have people that absolutely amazing with the flight simulator that they literally, and I've asked professional commercial pilots with that fly, 737s, A320s, is this, is it fair to say this is real enough where you can literally learn something significant if you want to be a pilot? They go, yeah. So there are folks I follow on YouTube that they take off. They're flying out of an airport on a 737 and they're dealing with, all the instrumentation. And that's amazing. That's a complex aircraft. That gets me excited as an educator. Yeah.
I can understand that. Jim, thank you so much for being on the show. This was absolutely amazing. I wish we had more time. We had more time. You have a free offer for our audience. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So my website, jimintriglia.com, there's a subscriber-only section. The blogs are free, but I go into a lot more detail, and I kind of provide an insider's view of things that I share only with my subscribers. So anybody that sends me an email, jim@jimintriglia.com, says they heard this podcast, I'll give a free 6-month subscription to. Cool. Or if they would like a career advisory or a mentoring session, I can do that as well, 45-minute session.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure everybody will appreciate that. I think your inbox is going to get flooded.
It will, but she's up to speed. She's ready.
You'll get an email from Hazel, I'm sure.
Cool. Yeah.
My new assistant will be thrilled to go to work.
Cool. Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of Epiphany Off the Cuff. My name again is Rick Meekins. Co-host is Hazel Haygood, and our guest today was Jim Intriglia. Thank you so much for watching. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching another episode of Epiphany Off the Cuff. please make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when the next episode is going to drop. And don't forget, we're on podcasts as well, so you can catch us on your favorite podcasting platforms. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Epiphany Off the Cuff.